Hello students, in this video I'm going to present some other important index that can help you in understanding the global trade environment and how to choose a given market to start your operation. The first index that I'm going to present is the Country Competitiveness Index. Country competitiveness is related to how the firms and sectors operating in a given country, how they have competitive advantages. So when you compare many different countries, if you have a country that are highly competitive, probably business operating there are very strong. And this means that if you belong to that country and if you are moving to a country with with a lower level of country competitiveness, probably you have some competitive advantage. And if you are from a country that is not so competitive and you are moving to a very and highly competitive country, probably you have a lot of strong business operating there. So you can use the country competitiveness indexes to understand how a given sector or how sectors in different countries can have competitive advantage when competing in different markets. If you do that, it will be easier for you to understand how strong can you be or if you have one competitive disadvantage. Usually, you have many different indexes for that. You have the IMD rank, competitiveness rank, and also the economic forum rank. And what's interesting about this is that you can go to these ranks and pick up the data and see many different measures about the country competitiveness. Let me give an example of the Global Competitiveness Index from the World Economic Forum. They use three different pillars to develop three different dimensions to create their indexes. They have the basic requirements, the efficiency enhancers, we have the innovation and sophistication. And if you go there, you have many different measures to analyze any of these elements of the pillar of the index. And you have real data of countries and you can see the evolution of countries. So it's a very important source to look deep into the country and see how these factors can affect a given sector or given business that you're planning to operate there. This is one example of a report about Brazil with results from 2016, and of course you can pick up more updated results and you can see many different dimensions, the results in the rank of Brazil in these elements, and also in a scale between 1 and 7 of these scores. For instance, you can see that in Brazil we have a very positive aspect in terms of market size. So it's a positive element that brings competitiveness to Brazil. But if you look to elements like institutions, we have a very low level on that. If we compare the level of institutions with other countries in the world, we can see that our institutions are considered not that good compared to other countries. And it's very interesting to read the report because they have a very complete overview of the current affairs of each country in the world, and you can use that as a prospect before you enter in a given country. Next, I'm going to show you a video with an explanation about the global competitiveness indexes.
With the global economy still in recovery, countries must embrace openness, technology, and innovation to remain competitive. But how do you measure competitiveness? The Global Competitiveness Report identifies 12 key pillars: institutions, infrastructure, macroeconomic environment, health and primary education, higher education and training, goods market efficiency, labour market efficiency, financial market development, technological readiness, market size, business sophistication, and innovation. Switzerland comes in first. Singapore comes in second, topping the higher education and training pillar. The United States remains third, driven by business sophistication and innovation, but lagging on basic factors such as infrastructure and public finances. The Netherlands rises by 1 place. Germany follows in 5th position. Sweden reaches 6th place with improvements in business sophistication and innovation. The United Kingdom is in 7th position. Japan falls to 8th position, showing a deterioration in its capacity to innovate. Hong Kong is 9th overall, with the highest marks on infrastructure. Finland is 10th, with the best score on institutions and health and primary education. Against the background of low productivity and economic growth in both emerging and advanced economies, this year's report reaches 3 key conclusions. Monetary stimulus is not enough. In economies without strong competitive conditions, efforts to revitalize growth through monetary policy alone will be less effective, failing to reignite growth. To stimulate business and entrepreneurship, countries must adopt comprehensive competitiveness agendas. Technology and innovation are increasingly driving development. By merging physical, biological, and digital systems, the 4th Industrial Revolution is bringing unprecedented change to the nature of work and productivity. In this context, the Global Competitiveness Report shows that technology and innovation are playing an increasingly important role relative to other factors in driving competitiveness and growth. Declining openness is putting future growth and prosperity at risk. Openness to trade and foreign investment generates incentives for businesses to innovate. To safeguard these environments against the rise of protectionism, inclusive growth strategies are a top priority. We hope that the Global Competitiveness Report will serve as a tool for policymakers, businesses, and civil society to collaborate on the development of a shared vision of economic progress and prosperity.
It's also important to analyze the degree that a given country is open or closed to new business. So you can look to the degrees and indexes of globalization to understand this factor. The degree of globalization can be a very important factor when you choose to operate in a foreign country. The reason why is that if you have a country with a lot of restrictions to where you don't have a lot of political integration, where you have a closed economy, or you have people that do not live abroad, or people that not speak foreign language, then it will be more difficult for you to establish your business there. So when you look to the degree of globalization, it's basically a way to see if it's an open society or if it's a closed society. There are many indexes that try to measure the degree of globalization of each country in the world. One of the most famous is the Koch Institute Index. In this index, we will have some variables to measure 3 dimensions of globalization: political, social, and economical globalization. Here are some data that you can pick up in the site of Koch organization, and then you can see the degree of globalization in a lot of countries in the world in the 3 dimensions. Just to give you an example, this is the rank of globalization from 2017, and as you can see, in terms of globalization index, Netherlands was in the 1st place, and we have Ireland in the 2nd place. But if you look to different levels of the different dimensions of globalization, we can see, for instance, that Singapore is in the first place in the economic globalization. We have Singapore also in the social globalization, but in political globalization, we have France in the 1st place, and also you have Brazil in a very good position in this measure by the time. Finally, you can look to the Human Development Index as a way to understand how evolved is a given country. The idea behind the Human Development Index is to use a broad definition of development that goes beyond the economical dimension. So, the Human Development Index will make a combination of measures of life expectancy, literacy, education, and GDP per capita to create an index of human life in a term that is more broader than the economic sense. So, the idea of these measures is that they are thinking about a way to make a wide definition of how people have options in their life. So if you have greater human development index, so people will have more choices, so people will have more opportunities, and because of that, people will have more quality in their lives. Usually, the Human Development Index will range between 0 and 1, and if you have a value close to 1, you have greater development, and values close to 0 means lower levels of development. Usually, you can classify countries as developed, developing, or underdeveloped countries according to the level of Human Development Index. As we're going to see in the next video, there's a huge importance of this index as a way to understand how evolved is a given country.
Inequality is everywhere. It stifles ambition and potential, and when it becomes extreme, people can take to the streets. Ultimately, it damages economies and societies. The concept of human development is all about giving people freedom to decide who they want to be and how they'll live. It involves, among many other things, living a long, healthy life, receiving decent education, and having a decent standard of living. In 2019, Human Development Report studied inequalities in human development, revealing 5 important results. 1. Human development has progressed immensely. Far more people are reaching a minimum standard. There's less extreme poverty and hunger, and greater access to basic education. But progress still needs to be made. 2. Inequality is changing. 30 years ago, there was massive inequality in the most basic aspects of life. Many children didn't survive their first years or have any education. These gaps are closing rapidly, but new types of inequality are emerging fast, while richer populations have much greater access to university education and much better health at older ages. 3. Inequalities start before birth and can widen immensely by the time kids are in school. From then on, these inequalities can grow across lifetimes, driven by deep imbalances in political and economic power. This is evident, for example, in the relative positions of women and men in some countries. 4. We need new ways to measure new inequalities. Dollars and rupees won't always help us understand inequalities in health and education. We must go beyond averages to see the full picture. 5. We must act now to overcome inequalities and design policies that work for every age group. Giving kids early childhood education, for example, will last lifetimes. But governments shouldn't just tackle symptoms. Long-lasting solutions will come from addressing the root causes of inequality, often ingrained in a country's history and culture. That way, we can boost economic growth and reduce inequality at the same time. It's not too late to act.
And here we can see a map of the current data of Human Development Index in different countries in the world. Green meaning greater Human Development Index, and red and orange meaning lower levels of this index. To wrap up, let's think about the implications of these levels of development to the marketing management, especially when you're trying to operate in many countries in the world. The main implication of these indexes is that when you have a very developed country, usually you have more competition, you have greater products, you have a lot of, usually the market will be more saturated. So usually when you're looking to more developed countries in terms of these many indexes that I presented, you're going to see that these countries usually have a lot of people using very high-tech, innovative products, and because of that, these markets are usually very competitive. When you look to less developed countries, usually you don't have a lot of competition, but in the other side, you can have some factors that will make more difficult for you to bring the products at the market. For instance, people cannot have the literacy, the level of education required. People don't have the money. People don't know the products. So when you look to the development of countries, try to understand the impact of this degree of development in different and on the level of usage of a given product, and especially on how is the level of competitiveness that you have there. Are you going to face a lot of competitive industries there, or you don't have it and you can be a leader in that market? So try to look to the numbers to understand the current affairs in the market and also the current affair on competitions. Of course, all these factors are based on the degree of these many dimensions, and this is an important part of the analysis of the international market environment that you need to do before you start your international marketing strategy. With that explanation, we finish this video on the different measures that are important to bring data and a broad understanding of the scenario in different countries in the world. So this was the objective of this video. See you in the next. Bye.